Welcome, folks. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. So, thank you all so much for being here with us.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're right at the top of the hour, so I'm going to do a CBEN plug. I'm Brenda Young, the Director of Community Engagement, and I'm very grateful for y'all to be here today. I wanted to also share that our annual conference, CB Exchange, will be in the fall, September 30th through October 3rd in Orlando, Florida. And right now, for the next week, we have our call for proposals for that conference open still. I'm going to put our website in the chat, but we hope that you'll join us there in the fall. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Grace Fowler.
Hi, super good afternoon. I'm Grace Fowler. I'm CBEN's Vice President of Operational Success. So I support CBEN in connecting the dots between our organizational strategy and turning that into action across our team. But then I also oversee our credit for competency strategic focus area. So I'm very excited today to talk to you all about what I'm even talking about when I say credit for competency and how that fits into the larger ecosystem. So thank you all so much for being here. Because we have a mix today of like friends and folks new to CBEN, I'm going to do my 60-second what is CBEN? Also spend a couple of minutes talking about what I'm talking about when I say credit for competency. And then I'm really excited to introduce my incredible panelists today, and have you start hearing directly from them about the work that they're leading. So to start, welcome. Who is CBEN? CBEN is the national leader in building systems that connect education to workforce needs. We realize that credentials and degrees tell a part, but not the full story. And we know that employers need proof that the employees have the skills to succeed from the day that they're hired, and that everyone deserves a shot at showing what they know and can do. So to solve for that, we are backed by a national, global and national network of institutions of higher ed, employers, state agencies, ecosystem partners, community-based organizations, and we work together across those folks to create that trusted foundation for the skills first future. We do that in a few different ways. One is like webinars today, events, convenings, webinar. Brenda mentioned CB Exchange is our annual conference. We really seek to bring folks together and share what we've learned, because we know we can go further together. We also provide technical assistance and consulting in partnership with organizations to solve challenges more hands-on. And then we take our learnings from those events, convenings, consulting engagements, partnerships to create resources, tools, and trainings that we share with the whole field so that we can really move the whole skills first movement forward. We do that using competency-based approaches and supporting competency-based approaches in learning, skills validation in the workforce, and seek to help learners and earners move seamlessly across the two. And really, the through line in everything we do is a simple belief that our system leaves too much learning on the table, which is what drives credit for competency. When we say all learning counts, which I love as a phrase, we mean exactly that, both at CBEN and with, I know, my panelists on the call here. The knowledge and skills acquired wherever someone acquired them should be recognized and valued and rewarded. And we would argue that it's not just an equity argument, though it is that. It's also an economic argument and a workforce readiness argument. So recognizing the full scope of what people know and can do is how we accelerate pathways, align better with workforce and employer needs, and really drive economic mobility at scale. So in all learning accounts, we really enhance learning outcomes and workforce readiness. We have meaningful mechanisms in this through credit for prior learning, also known as sometimes recognition of prior learning assessment. We know that folks use those terms interchangeably and alongside one another. They've opened real doors for real learners. The practitioners doing this work often are really fighting for adult learners long before it's been a strategic priority, and that matters. And there is a challenge across these of scale and consistency. And there's this real opportunity to increase utilization of CPL to match that need, not because the models are wrong, but because the infrastructure around them sometimes isn't there. Processes can be complex and hard to navigate, especially for learners who don't even know if CPL exists. And so building and maintaining resource intensive and complicated processes can be a challenge. And sometimes even employers lack the clear pathways too to document and validate skills that their employees have earned on the job. So the question isn't really of whether like CPL is important or works. It does. It's really how do we make it work at the scale that this moment demands? And that's exactly what today's conversation is about. Really important to just let you all know, we've talked about it in the title of this webinar, and it's language that CBEN is using, but we use credit for competency to emphasize that it's not actually about looking at the learning itself, but it's at looking at what someone knows and can do and awarding credit for the mastery of the learning. And another important framing here is that we're not building credit for to simply count towards the learner's progress towards a credential in an institution. We want that function to plug into efforts like LERs and digital wallets, statewide talent marketplaces, making sure that we're not missing that opportunity to bridge credit for prior learning pathways with other efforts to help learners be more mobile across learning and work. As a really quick example, we have Oliver. Meet Oliver. He's served on city council, he's volunteered at a literacy network, worked at a bicycle repair shop. As you can see, he's got a lot of existing skill sets, stakeholder convening, community building. He comes with a lot of competencies when he arrives on a college campus. But when we go through the process of figuring out how that maps, it can be a kind of inexact process. It asks Oliver to translate his life into academic language, and that's hard work to build systems that speak his language too. But with competency-based frameworks, we can kind of flip that. It's not about necessarily trying to articulate the like alignment of that experience to specific coursework, but could also allow him to demonstrate mastery of the competency and earn credit for that directly. Competency then becomes the currency that he carries with him across learning and work. And when we build open competency frameworks, that currency can plug into LERs, talent marketplaces, employer hiring systems, things like that. So, how do we get to credit for competency? Competency-based approaches may be a part of, but not use of the models today, but not as the core currency yet. But the work that LARC, Los Angeles Regional Consortium, Minnesota State Colleges and Universities, and Thomas Edison State University are using today um, are building the conditions that make credit for competency possible. Cross-institutional trust, operational scale, shared infrastructure. That's not like a detour from credit for competency. It's really such a aligned effort. And that's exactly what we want to explore today with today's panelists is different models across these three folks here today, but really the same destination of all learning counting. Okay, I've talked enough. I've said 5 minutes, but it's been 8. So let me stop talking and hand it off to these incredible panelists. Um, I'm going to ask each of my panelists to share their name, their organization or institution, and the role there. And then I'd love to hear from you all. What problem were you trying to solve when you chose your current CPL approach? And which learner population most shaped your CPL strategy? So I know that's a lot to cover, but excited to hear from all three of you. And maybe we can start with Mary Beth.
Thanks, Grace. I'm Mary Beth Lake, and I'm the Executive Director for Minnesota State Colleges and Universities Credit for Prior Learning Assessment Network, or C-Plan. This is a system-wide collaborative to support all of the 7 universities and the 26 community and technical colleges in implementing CPL. So, what problem were we trying to solve with C-Plan? Well, I think how to build capacity is probably a good way to start off with this. Also, identify and solve our problems together, share our resources, and develop and share expertise because what we were seeing across the system was uneven resources and varying levels of expertise. So, which learner population is shaping our strategy? And this sounds very general, but this is true, I think. I think we're looking at learners where additional credentialing is going to make a difference for them in the workplace and in the community, and where CPL will make a difference for them in earning that credential. So if that sounds like it includes a lot of learners, it does.
I love that. All learning counts for all learners.
Think about it across the lifespan.
Thanks so much, Mary Beth.
Sure.
Maybe Narni, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Grace, for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Narina McKeegan, Chair Assistant Vice President of the Los Angeles Regional Consortium, hosted at Pasadena City College, who serves as our fiscal agent. We are one of 8 regional consortiums in the state of California, funded by the California Community College Chancellor's Office. And the Los Angeles Regional Consortium, also known as LARC, is the coordinating body for LA 19's community colleges in LA County, working together to do what no single college can do alone. We align education, workforce, industry by bringing together colleges, employers, K-12, four-year colleges, universities, regional workforce and economic development partners, and community partners to build strong career pathways and meet regional workforce needs. Through initiatives like the Strong Workforce program that we have in California, all of our career and technical education programs, credit for prior learning, apprenticeships, work-based learning. We scale equitable access to high quality training, and we try to accelerate pathways to livable wage careers, ensuring that our students and the region's economy can thrive. And when we started to do the regional coordination and collaboration around credit for prior learning, we were working to address the inconsistency and limited scale of credit for prior learning across the 19 colleges. Too often, CPL processes varied by institution, creating barriers for students and missed opportunities to recognize valuable learning gained outside of the classroom. Our goal was to empower our LA 19 community colleges across the 11 community college districts with one of the largest districts in the nation, LACCD, by bridging gaps in internal knowledge, readiness, and implementation of CPL programs, paving the way for a more equitable and effective CPL system. And our learner population was primarily shaped by adult learners, especially working learners, displaced workers, and those with prior industry experience, military service, or life experience who needed more flexible, transparent, and accelerated pathways to achieve their educational and career goals.
Super. Thank you so much. Jeff, take us home
Thank you,
on the
Grace, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Jeff Harmon, Vice Provost for Strategic Initiatives and Institutional Effectiveness at Thomas Edison State University in Trenton, New Jersey. Thomas Edison is a senior public institution in New Jersey serving adult learners, and we offer degrees at the associate's, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral level. We were chartered in 1972 as a degree aggregator, helping students transfer credit in coupled with prior learning credit and portfolio assessment, and help them earn a degree. And that mission has persisted for over 50 years at Thomas Edison. I believe we're one of the largest recipients of ACE credit, transfer credit in the country. And last year we gave out about 300,000 plus credits of prior learning at virtually no cost to students. Thomas Edison has a very unique model where we're not only a senior institution in the state of New Jersey, but we're also somewhat of a state agnostic resource for prior learning. We have a plan or a program called NJ Plan, stands for New Jersey Prior Learning Assessment Network, where we have multiple other community colleges and senior institutions as partners who have agreed to look at the work we do for credit for prior learning and to facilitate transfer of our evaluated credit for prior learning into their own institutions and programs. So we have the ability in what we kind of refer to this as credit or democracy of credit, mobility of credit, whatever your flavor is. But we have the ability to take a student in who has earned some prior learning credit and has decided for whatever reason that Thomas Edison is not the right institution for us. Maybe they want to go to their local community college. We can provision them with a transcript of the prior learning that they earned, and they can bring that to whatever institution they want to attend. That serves the basis for a lot of 2+2, 3+1, and 3+2 articulation agreements, or as I like to say, artics with a twist, because we're overlaying that credit for prior learning in those agreements. The problem that we are looking to solve, and I'll talk about Create NJ in the next segment, but the problem that we're looking to solve is eliminating redundancy. We don't want every institution in the country to have their own credit for prior learning model. We're just reinventing the wheel that many times over. So we believe in partnership. We believe in collaboration and transparency. Being a member of NJ Plan means you get to see under the hood of Thomas Edison's credit for prior learning evaluation engine. And we even bring in subject matter experts from other institutions to serve on teams so they can see our model in action. We would love to have multiple institutions in New Jersey evaluating credit for prior learning in different areas and build a reciprocity engine between and among institutions. And then the students that we intend to serve, our president, Dr. Meredith Hancock, likes to joke a little bit and say, "Oh, you didn't think you were going to college, but we got you. You have credit." So we're really working with apprenticeship programs and unions in populations that chose a very different path other than a higher education degree. But because we were able to evaluate those apprenticeship programs and other types of non-collegiate training for credit, they find themselves with college credit. And now the higher education credential becomes much more attainable for populations that did not think that was in the cards for them.
I love hearing about the proactivity built into the model there of awarding credit. That's incredible. I'm excited to have folks learn even more. Well, what Jeff alluded to in this sort of next piece of the session here is it would be great to hear a little bit about the how, spotlighting each of you a little bit to hear how you chose the model that you did, and the journey to build that up. So, how about we start with the LA Regional Consortium and that sort of regional collaboratory model? Why did that multi-institutional approach make sense for you all, and what efficiencies or benefits have emerged from doing that collaborative approach as opposed to 19 institutions going at it alone?
Yeah, absolutely. So for LARC, a regional multi-institution approach made sense because our colleges serve a highly mobile and diverse student population across Los Angeles County. Students often take courses at multiple institutions, so having inconsistent CPL policies and processes creates confusion and inequitable access. So a collaborative model allowed our 19 colleges to align practices, reduce duplication, and really build a shared standard of quality and trust. In fact, one of the most impactful strategies we implemented was a tiered mentorship model grounded in peer-led learning. Colleges that had reached their key milestones in CPL, they don't operate in isolation. They serve as mentors to peers who are building towards those same goals. At the same time, campus CPL experts are leading peer-to-peer sessions that build real implementation capacity across the region. And combined with this, colleges received external professional development from partners like CBEN, who's hosting this today, and also the MAP initiative, which is our statewide initiative through the Chancellor's Office. And these efforts and these partnerships really help to elevate our support. And with that, this has allowed us to do more and move faster and smarter together. Instead of each college trying to figure it out on their own, we're pooling resources, co-developing tools, and creating a shared framework that can scale. It really strengthened faculty engagement because the learning comes from trusted peers, not just the top-down guidance. And it streamlined processes, reduced duplication, and most importantly, it created consistent and equitable experiences for students across our institutions. At the end of the day, this model isn't just about collaboration, it's about alignment. And that alignment is what's allowing us to expand access, accelerate pathways, and more effectively connect to workforce needs across the region. And I'm happy to put our implementation and expansion guide in the chat, as well as all of the tools and resources we've compiled for our 19 colleges as well.
Yeah, it's really neat, Narnia, to hear you talk about that, like the hunger for partnership on a practical level across institutions to do that sharing, and then also having that added benefit in the model of that then being clearer to learners, and being a more sort of smooth transition across the region for learners as well. So thank you so much for walking us through like why this approach and how that's helped institutions make progress. Jeff, back to you. Thomas Edison State University and NJ Plan has a little bit more of that hub and spoke, right? Where you all do that sort of centralized transcription for the state. How did this model address some of those like quality and trust, but also consistency or operational concerns?
Yeah, thanks, Grace. So Thomas Edison has had the agnostic hat and worn the agnostic hat for many, many years. But it wasn't until a few years ago that it was formalized in statute. So Governor Murphy signed into law the Create NJ project, which stands for the Center for Career Relevant Education and Talent Evaluation of New Jersey. And in that construct, Thomas Edison would be the provider of a statewide learner educational record for New Jersey's citizens. We are going to start that project with a little bit of seed money that was earmarked out of a New Jersey Department of Labor grant that we received to expand our evaluations into apprenticeship programs. And through that learner educational record, we're going to provide citizens with a workforce transcript that showcases their skills, verified by Thomas Edison. So these are not self-report skills. These are verified through some form of outcomes assessment within our institution. We're going to pilot with a series of students in our associates in construction and facility support, which happens to be a lot of our apprenticeship or what we call degree apprenticeship students, because we know they're going to have both sides of that transcript filled out, the academic side and also the verified skills side. As part of that construct, the Create NJ construct, there will emerge also a talent marketplace. And this is something that I'm super, super excited about. I liken it to a little bit like, Match.com, where employers and career seekers can get onto the same platform. But instead of looking at long walks on the beach and singing in the rain, criteria, they're looking at skills. So an employer may have a need for an underwater welder with scuba certification. There might be someone like that who has verified skills through one of the apprenticeship programs that we've evaluated, and the employer can, swipe right on that individual and create a conversation between them with the career seeker. So we're really building a very fine-tuned talent marketplace, which will have other downstream effects, I think, for the state of New Jersey as well. It may be able to tell us which professions are growing and where we may have talent shortfalls and where we may need to beef up educational programs in those areas. So that is sort of the pinnacle of Thomas Edison's state agnostic hat in support of all of the other institutions and really the citizens and workforce programs here in New Jersey.
Got it. Um, love hearing that you're definitely speaking our language on the talent marketplace thing. But again, to your point, Jeff, like contextualizing this in the larger state context that you all are operating in and making sure that the work that you all are doing is catalyzing efforts across the state in that model. So thank you so much. Mary Beth, Minnesota. We have this, and sorry, I'm in Minnesota too, so I'm saying we have this like centralized validation model. What role does that play in building trust with institutions, but also employers and learners? And what has that model allowed you all to accomplish that would have been difficult in the same way to do individual institution by institution?
Thanks, Grace. I think I would describe what we're doing as a model in the making. And it has that validation piece, but it also has the collaborative or collective piece to it and the hub and spoke piece as well. So we've adopted or adapted kind of different elements to meet the needs of our state. C-Plan was started 7 years ago with Metro State as the fiscal agent in where we are operationally, but we serve all the institutions within the system. And the idea was that we would come together and we would figure out things together. It wasn't just a system top down approach, but grassroots across, everybody interacting with each other. And so, but as a system, we also begin to identify common terms and definitions. We developed a system-wide policy and procedures. And then and again, this was from the C-Plan network, or C-Plan, the network with all the campuses coming together and saying, we've got capacity issues. We can't keep up with everything going on. And the one thing that keeps sliding off our plates is CPL. So out of that, we developed what we call my CPL, which is a platform with a software that standardizes the process and the workflow. It shares assessment rubrics for what we call internal and external CPL assessments. And then most recently, we've developed a public dashboard for crosswalks for industry certifications. So I think what this approach has allowed us to do in terms of trying to build the trust is we've done a lot of what I would call playing in the sandbox. So we've got to, all of us, whatever role we play, advisor, director, faculty member, we've got to understand how CPL works, um, what it is, and what our role is, because usually there are quite a few people who might touch that whole process on campus or interact with students with that. So just some examples of that. Faculty developed what we call it CPL Academy on D2L. So this was developed by faculty for faculty to provide some CPL foundation. We have what we call regional campus roadshows, where we pull cross-functional teams together to have working sessions, because one of the things folks talk about is we just don't have enough dedicated time to do this. So we've tried to set that up. Professional development days where affinity groups like advisors can get together. And then another thing that's really made it a difference in how we respond to learners, how we help campuses, how we interact with employers is data. We have more reliable data now. And because we have common codes, operating instructions that we use for transcribing CPL. And so we can look at the uptake, we can look at the opportunities. We now have a better handle on persistence and completion across learner groups. And then we've also surveyed campuses about their practices, and we've done surveys across campuses and interviews with students to get the student experience too. So what we're learning from that is, where are our gaps? Where are we not transparent? Where are we not consistent? Where are the inequities? And then that, just having the data and having the stories along with the data, from our different partners and our learners and our campuses, that just really helps us respond. It helps us be more proactive too in what we need to do.
Absolutely, that data and storytelling feels like such an important component of sustaining what you all are working on too. Let's talk a bit about, I feel like Mary Beth, you're starting to get into this a little bit, but this like what's working, what has worked and your journeys and what hasn't. And folks, the three of you all, as you'd like, pop in to answer questions going forward. But what are the big challenges that you all encountered early on in the process, and how are you all able to work through those barriers?
Well, I'll just jump in and just say that this is a journey, and we continue to work on this. But I think from the outset, it's been raising awareness and then centering CPL as just part of the everyday work that we do with learners. It's not something special, it's not an event, it's part of the everyday teaching, learning, and assessing. And then how do we organize the work so it really does happen that way? So I think the collaborative nature of the network, come with your problems, let's figure them out. The road shows where you can do your work. That kind of thing has really helped along the way. But I also think not just on campuses, but system wide, looking at system initiatives and priorities like our Equity 2030 or strategic enrollment management. We've been over the years constantly looking at how do we embed CPL? How do we look at this system wide so that when we're talking about equity 2030 goals, we're also talking about recognition of learning. We're talking about strategic enrollment management. We're talking about students with or learners with some credit but no credential. And how do we bring them back in? So I think, the collaborative working together with each other has helped, but also figuring out ways throughout the system to embed it. So it becomes second nature.
Right? Like not mitigating the risk of it being like a shiny thing to
Right,
temporarily run after, but
right.
saying this is aligned to those strategic priorities that are already here.
Yeah, I can share a little bit about our regional work. One of the biggest early challenges was really building alignment and trust across the colleges, especially around academic quality, faculty ownership and the consistency of CPL practices. We also had to acknowledge early on that not all of our colleges had the same level of staffing, resources, or personnel capacity to even implement this work at the same pace. So we work through that by taking a more regional approach of not only sharing the tools, cross college like learning spaces, but also a community of practice that allowed colleges to learn from one another, reduce duplication, and really build capacity collectively rather than expecting each institution to do it on their own. And we were very fortunate to be able to partner with our California Community College Chancellor's Office Credit for Prior Learning MAP team. And the core initiative there under Vision 2030 is to really advance equity, accelerate completion, and align education with workforce needs. And so the MAP statewide platform is also a strategy that helps our colleges translate work, military, and industry learning into college credit at scale. And so we were really fortunate to have our MAP colleagues, statewide MAP colleagues, on every single one of our communities of practice, sharing resources, providing professional development, and really supporting our colleges, our 19 colleges. But just like Mary Beth shared, there's so many different ways in which our MAP team is supporting different groups to be able to do this work across the state. So we're really fortunate to also have the partnerships that help to scale this work as well.
Yeah, it speaks to that contextualization of this effort in larger statewide priorities, but also to your point, RNA, like we're hearing how big of an operational lift some of this technology piece is. And so having that resource in the state can really drive progress. So thank you for sharing that part. Jeff, any challenges that come to mind for you?
Yeah, Grace, I think we've definitely had our fair share of challenges. Certainly, funding for a project that is, a little bit foreign in some circles. That's one. Also, appearing to our sister institutions as that state agnostic and not a competitor in trying to, recruit the same limited and dwindling student population. I know we really do walk the walk of rising tides lift all ships, and any students who come to us just to get the transcript, they are not students of Thomas Edison. They are outside of the realm of recruitment for us. So we really do walk that walk and keep them very separate. And then I think probably the biggest challenge for us has been getting this information into the hands of the students themselves. So I'll use the example of our apprenticeship, our degree apprenticeship program. We are offering full ride scholarships for registered apprenticeship students in the state of New Jersey to earn an associate's completely for free. And in many instances, we're giving more than half of that associate's degree to them when they finish the apprenticeship. However, we've found that most apprentices are not scouring LinkedIn looking for learning opportunities. So we've had to meet them literally where they are, which is 8 o'clock at night in a union hall after a long day, either in the classroom or on the job. And we're addressing a population that chose a different path. So we're bringing to them a very specific opportunity. So the channels that are set up to find the students that we really want to work with and want to support are difficult. They're difficult to find. We've had a really good success working with the New Jersey Department of Education in the K-12 and career and technical education space. And we just launched a new project on our website where we've evaluated a dozen or so career and technical education programs that often lead to apprenticeships. So we're taking the approach of trying to get them a little bit earlier on in their life cycle and make them aware of these opportunities that give them really that earn and learn opportunity to have the best of both worlds, a career in the trades, an apprenticeship program, and a degree with no debt. So those are just a few of the challenges that we faced.
Thank you so much for sharing those. And I'm curious, this is related but slightly different, given we have folks on the call who may be from institutions but may represent community-based organizations, funders, tech providers. Are there any things that if you were starting again today, you would do differently that might be valuable for folks trying to figure out where to start or how to be good partners to folks as they begin to build and expand those pathways?
I mean, I could certainly take a first stab at that. Um, so I think we have learned and we now focus on more regional associations between workplaces and the learners they serve. So if we know there's a particular apprenticeship program in a particular county with the community college, we try to bring all of those stakeholders to the table. Because typically, those individuals, if they are going to go to a community college, they're going to go to the one in their local area. So we try to bring them together and to inform the community college that our work is not a competition with you. We're actually creating a new market for you to recruit from. And then because Thomas Edison has very flexible transfer credit, we can do a very easy 3+1. So those apprentices can transfer credit for prior learning from us to their community college, stay there for the full, 2 years, even if they are getting credit, which will amount to 3 years, and then have an opportunity to transfer back to Thomas Edison to finish that bachelor's. So we're very much interested in partnering with as many community colleges in the state and out of the state as we can. And we would ask them, we would start that conversation by saying, what types of Non-collegiate workplace training programs are in your regional area. What are the schools in your regional area? And let's benefit everybody all at once rather than fighting over the same, dwindling population of students.
Neat. It's like this longevity play for institutions, but also, yeah, that there's so many people touching these efforts. And so for it to be successful, having that early on alignment across all of those partners, I see how that seems like an important early stage step to kick things off on the right foot.
I can share a little about for us as it relates to if we were starting today, what we would like to do differently. I think part of it is being more intentional about engaging a broader cross section of roles from the beginning for each of the institutions. Early on, we were primarily working with a core group. So we funded each of our colleges to do the CPL work. But as we started and we had our point of context for each of our 19 colleges, we quickly realized that successful CPL implementation requires alignment across instruction, counseling, admissions, records, IT, and also leadership. So bringing these voices together early on would really accelerate both clarity and the execution of the work we intended to do. In addition to that, it's really, really challenging when the capacity and the resources and personnel is different across the region. And so we were able to provide seed money to do this work. But once that money goes away, and also if the state is providing, one-time funds, for example, our state is providing one-time funds for now of 50,000 to each of our institutions. We just need to have more sustainable funding that helps support building this system across the institution to be able to do the work. So there are no challenges as it relates to putting this information into the map articulation platform. And if there are barriers, who's kind of owning this space? And I think because that looks different across each institution, it becomes a challenge to really build a streamlined experience for CPL credits. And so that I would say that for us, that was kind of an aha moment of we really need to bring a lot of different individuals to the table to have this discussion and really identify who's going to support which component of the process. And it's not one person's job.
Uh, so it's neat to hear the overlap too with Jeff too. It's like it's stakeholders across individual institutions, and then it's also connecting and convening folks across, within an institution, across systems, and even across the state. So thank you so much. Mary Beth, how about you?
Yeah, I think those are such good points, and I think I would agree that um, we could have done that earlier. I think I think we're doing a better job of that now, and maybe we needed to build some foundational steps to get there. But one of the things I definitely would have started sooner was improving the procedures for tracking CPL because we just had no data, bad data.
Mm,
No, and we really needed to work on that. And then just because the nature of CPL, as I was talking about earlier, sometimes the way it's housed or organized, it can be very fragmented or marginalized. And so I think just again, looking at how the work is organized and
oh dear.
look at,
Oh, Mary Beth, we lost you for just a moment, but you're back.
okay, good. Getting my internet connection is unstable. Sorry about that. Um, but anyway, just looking at more methods, processes for organizing the work to decrease the fragmented nature of it. And I think things like MyCPL, our platform, that's helping with that.
Great. Yeah. Need to have that tool to pull all of those pieces together. Um, I want to make sure that we save a little bit of time here for folks on the call to ask questions. So I'll just ask one more. I think um, you all have provided some really powerful recommendations for, what are some of those early stage things to do, but still trying to imagine creating what you all have been able to build when, depending on what stage you are in as an institution, can feel a bit overwhelming. What is the one concrete step? And I would love for you all to think about not just institutions, but like state agencies, employer partners, community-based organizations. What step can folks take in the next 6 to 12 months if they're serious about scaling credit for competency or credit for prior learning?
I would say the biggest success would be to align all the initiatives that are happening, not only statewide, but across all of the different partners that you just mentioned, Grace. I think oftentimes, we're all kind of in our respective spaces, and we have our own initiatives, we have our own accountability, our own metrics, and so we kind of work in silos. I think as it relates to success and in this work, because it requires so much alignment, it is really important to really build an ecosystem that really threads that line towards the learner's success. And I think for us, the way we've been successful in helping to shape this across our institutions is by having a really close relationship with our Chancellor's Office MAP team and being able to not only share resources, but to compile all the resources that go untapped because people are just so overwhelmed with their day-to-day roles, and be able to share that out in an intentional way so that those are utilized to actually increase the success of our learners in this space. So my suggestion would be, build relationships, create that threading of what exists in the ecosystem, and really streamline the structure that will help not only an individual institution, but the region to be able to successfully do this work as well.
Yeah, for me, it suggests kind of a collective inventory, which I think we've got to do so that we know what each one of us is doing and how we can align that. And then I also think when we're looking at initiatives across different sectors, to think about how those connect and can build on each other. So sometimes we might focus on a particular group of learners and we don't necessarily look at the benefits for other learners. So, for example, one of our projects with state agencies and community-based organizations now is recognition of learning for internationally trained professionals, and that has been a learning experience for all the agencies because we've learned how we need to better work within our own organizations, but across organizations, how we need to help each other navigate what do we need to do in terms of the language that we use, but then also knowing this is not just going to benefit internationally trained professionals. The kinds of assessments that we're developing, the kinds of pathways we're creating for recognition of learning, that's going to help all learners.
Mary Beth, thank you so much. What a lovely place to land us. So thank you. I would love to open it up to the group. What questions for folks who are on the call come to mind for you all, for the panelists? And feel free to come off mute or video if you'd like.
Hi, Mary Donovan from Illinois, and Mary Beth came and helped our small little consortium in Chicagoland last year try to kickstart something. Mary Beth, we're getting there, but it's, slow going, what can I say? But we're keeping at it. One of the things that groups of us within the state of Illinois who are involved in, wanting to get us to do CPL better, and in many cases do it in the first place at our institutions, community colleges, and universities. One of the things we're bumping up against is that, universities talk to universities. Some universities talk to some universities. Some community colleges do the same with each other. But trying to pull us together has been difficult to do. I serve on it's called a Faculty Advisory Council to the Board of Higher Ed, and we have 36 members, and 12 are from the public universities. We have 12 public universities, and 12 are representative of the over 40 private universities and colleges we have in the state. And then 12 represent the over 40 community colleges that we have in the state. And so we're the only entity within the state that brings everybody together. And so it's through that work with the Faculty Advisory Council that I've been trying to get a CPL initiative up and going. But what the working group that I established, the trouble we're having is trying to just get universities and community colleges together. And we tried it with certain disciplines. So my discipline, early childhood teacher education, we actually just passed 2 weeks ago policies and guidelines for all consortium members, and that would be community colleges and universities, policies and guidelines that we agree upon for early childhood education majors. Hooray, big win. But now we're trying to expand this. And so I'd love to hear from not just you panelists, but others, like, what are you finding is working in your state to bring these different institution types together? Because we're stuck right now. We'd love to hear what you've been doing, what's been working. Is that okay, Grace, that I'm asking for help like this?
Yeah, of course, Mary. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And I appreciate just, yeah, the like, let's problem solve the vulnerability. I'm sure you're not alone. Take it away,
So
Joe.
I'd like to address the question, Dr. Donovan, and share one area where we've had some success mm, moving past some inertia issues. So one of the things that I try to do with fellow academics from other institutions when we seem to be at a point where we're not able to move forward is to really boil down the conversation to the language of learning from the perspective of outcomes. What are students actually learning? Let's forget for a minute where they're learning it, how they're learning it, or who they're learning it from. What are they actually learning, and how do we know that they've learned it? What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we want to see, and how do we have assurance that they have those at a certain competency level? I have found that when engaging with faculty specifically, when we kind of push aside some of the traditions of higher ed and we start talking in the language of outcomes, assessment, and data, it seems to work a little bit better. When we say, okay, let's look at the outcomes on your syllabus, let's look at the outcomes of this syllabus, forget the fact that it's in a union shop and they're wearing a welding mask. Let's just look at what they're learning. Are they learning things about safety? Are they learning things about management? Are they learning things about science and what kinds of, toxic fumes can kill you? And, oh, aren't they learning that in chemistry class too? Right? Safety and various chemicals, vapors, gases, etc. So when we do that, it kind of, at least for us, has had an aha moment effect where they say, oh, well, okay, I was a little caught up with the fact that they were wearing a big helmet and had a torch in their hand. But now we're talking about something that is my language, which is outcomes, which is assessment, which is knowledge, skills, and abilities. So that's been working for us when we can have those conversations to overcome a little bit of inertia.
Neat. I was just holding some time too, if there were some other folks in the room. And to your, I think the other like opportunity or tension, Dr. Donovan, is also just sort of a shared sh there's so many learners to serve and so much opportunity to meet the workforce demand. I'm sure that's the case in Chicagoland. Like I can only imagine where there's like significant workforce gaps, workforce needs. And so helping do that socialization of like this, I feel like Jeff, you mentioned this too, and I saw firsthand Narne in LA. It's like we're beyond the like this is going to cannibalize one another's learner population. Like there's plenty of learners. That's actually not the challenge that y'all are trying to solve. You're actually trying to work together because the need is so significant to address these workforce gaps that no individual one of you can actually solve it. And so that's kind of the good news for the bringing folks together at the table too, is that it's a conversation of like, there's just all this opportunity we're leaving on the table. Like, how do we work together to better meet that opportunity as opposed to it being like um, that tension. You can reframe that to that opportunity too.
I had to give a shout out to CBEN because we worked for over 10 years with CBEN in early childhood to establish our system. So
Appreciate it. Love that. Dr. DeBacker, I saw you go on camera, but curious. I think we probably have time for
Yeah.
one more
Oh,
question.
good. Thanks, Grace. I'm curious as to how each of, or if one of you can describe how you got outside what we would traditionally think of as credit for prior learning. So outside of advanced placement, outside of IB, outside of industry recognized credentials. And so Jeff, you you talked about you guys take anything and you look at it and you run it through your engine. Um, because I feel like here, at least in Kansas, we talk about that we do credit for prior learning, but it's the normal suspects. And we aren't getting outside of that. And so, Grace, when you talk about us leaving things on the table, I think there's so many things being left on the table for our learners that if it doesn't fit into this bucket of what we think of that can transfer over, be credited. So I'm just curious as to how y'all got outside of what we would traditionally think of with credit for prior learning.
Yeah, I can definitely take a first stab at that. So, whenever I have a conversation with a non-collegiate training entity, doesn't matter what it is they're training, I let them know that we have sort of three ingredients that we're looking for. We're looking for clear statements of student learning outcomes. What do you want your students to know and be able to do when they're done training in this course or in this program? Two, we're looking at the content. What are you exposing them to? And then three is assessment. How do you know when a student has gotten to a certain competency level? And we've had our fair share of exploring training that has two of those three, but then when it comes to assessment, it's the trainer says, "I know it when I see it," and we say, "That's not going to work for us," because what we want to do is we want to validate the learning, equate it to college credit, and do that at scale. So it's a small investment, but it affords historical students who graduated, up to 10 years past, because we're looking at a snapshot in time and future forward. And sometimes we have to help them translate that. I like to say Thomas Edison is an expert at translating things into academic jargon. We can help them translate those knowledge, skills, and abilities, I'm sorry, the outcomes, content, and assessments into language that our academic governance model will recognize. So, we try to make it as simple as possible to look at things. And so we've evaluated a lot of eclectic training. The New York Police Academy, New York Port Authority Police Academy, we've evaluated that. We looked at firearms training, but we had to move past some of those traditional, that doesn't look like a higher ed type of training to get to the nitty-gritty of what's in the actual training and how do we verify that they are actually learning those components. It's also not a wholesale project. It's a la carte, right? We looked at some cosmetology programs, and there's no academic credit for hairdressing, not that I need it, in higher ed, but they are taking classes in small business management, in taxation, in entrepreneurship to open up their own salon. So we can take a little bit from each place and stack them together to come to a credit award. So those are just some strategies.
Thank you. And it makes me think of that slide that you put up, Grace, in the beginning about that you're not trying to equate it to a course. It's you have to break it down into a competency. And Jeff, you described those three ingredients. So thank you guys very much.
I love the question so much because to your point, I think, there are some, when we're saying CPL, just some of those specific ways that we immediately go to say like, oh yeah, I do CPL because we accept these components. And so expanding beyond those already kind of familiar, easier to integrate pathways is really where the rubber meets the road and where some of that challenge arises, where you have to be specific. We're running up on time. I think there's two words that I feel like I'm taking away so much from this convo. I feel like a big one is trust. Not that we've been using the word itself, but when we're talking about building relationships across institutions, even just trust in higher ed to stay responsive to these workforce needs. We talked about how many people touch these efforts at an individual institution, across a system or region, between institutions and other community partners or ecosystem partners. There's so many people. And so, how do you get that buy-in? And we talked about the dynamics of like top down and grassroots and the importance of who people are learning from, both peers in the role and peers in the region or state. And so, hearing that trust building seems like so important, or even the importance of institution agnostic approach, Jeff, that you described, where um, in order for Thomas Edison to sustain those relationships and that trust that the transcripting you're doing is something that folks can buy into, that seems so integral to the success of those efforts. So trust is a big one. And then awareness. I heard Mary Beth, you talk about storytelling. Jeff, you talking about proactively helping learners see, like you have college credits already, like you have college level skills that are helping you make progress. And also, Narne, the alignment to priorities across sectors and showing how this connects, and the awareness of that to ensure that it's sustained is so integral. So I cannot thank the three of you all enough for your time today. The insights and the models, we'll make sure to share out y'all's contact information along with the recording of this session. So folks can reach out to you and continue that learning. I love hearing we've already been in touch, some of you all, and let's keep doing that, like best practice sharing to make sure that we're creating those pathways to ensure that all learning is counting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.